Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday Morning Rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. And today is Monday, and what do we do on Monday? Show and tell. That's an exciting part of our club that we do every Monday morning is show and tell. But before we get into my exciting train that I want to talk about, is that we want to thank all the viewers that have watched our Monday morning show and tell. It just keeps growing. We're over to 3,000 views a week, and we are just really excited about that. A lot of people ask us, how do we become a member of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum? Well, if you just call me, I'll explain everything. My phone number is 904-716-0436. Ask for Denny. And we are welcoming new members. And we have running sessions on Friday, and on Monday is open running. And then you get to see us film the world famous show and tell. Now, to today's show and tell, we have an exciting train that started in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's called the New Royal Palm of the Southern Railroad, and we have it right here. But I want to give a real quick history. It basically started in 1913. Along with the Ponce de Leon. Most railroads had two main trains going to a particular point. This had two trains, the Ponce de Leon and the Royal Palm, and they usually ran about 12 hours apart, and it gave good service availability to customers. But in 1949, the Southern Railroad made a decision to really modernize the Royal Palm, and they called it the New Royal Palm. And they ran a big publicity campaign all in the upper Midwest, because this train actually originated in Detroit, and then at Cincinnati, their trading partner was the New York Central, and the New York Central took it from Detroit, Toledo, on down to Cincinnati. The Royal Palm, they advertised throughout the Midwest, from Buffalo, Cleveland, Columbus, nationally Detroit, Chicago, Indianapolis, and as far west as St. Louis. And they had sleeping cars that would feed in from all of these cities, and they would join the New Royal Palm that came out of Detroit in Cincinnati, and they would add all of these cars. The Florida market for the upper Midwest was really a hot market, and the railroad had a lot of competition. The Pennsylvania fed the L&N and Atlantic Coastline trains. The Illinois Central was a big player in that market. And so when you wanted to go to Florida, you had a great variety to pick from, and the railroads knew this, and so they would go after all segments of the market. If they had let's say the economic person that was looking for low fares, they had a train just for that, and that was like the Ponce de Leon. And if you wanted a high-end train, you would take the New Royal Palm, and you wouldn't even have to change sleeping cars. Got on a sleeping car in Buffalo, it went to Cincinnati, they just added it to this train. If you was in Indianapolis, even in St. Louis, you wouldn't even have to change trains. And that was the beauty of the New Royal Palm. And its trading partner, once again, was the New York Central. And so it was very fierce competition for the Florida market. And as I said many times before, there were more trains coming out of the Midwest to Florida than there actually was coming out of the Northeast. And so a lot of people didn't know that. But for an example, they would have dining car service, and they would have dining lounge car service. The in-car, I want us to look at this in-car right here, and it's a Pullman Standard, and it is a lounge dining type car, and that was basically for the first class Pullman people. But here, what we have here is a rendition of a typical New Royal Palm. Now, this car here, train, is about 7-8 cars long. In real life, this car would swell in the winter months to 20 cars, because you would have one car coming designated Pullman out of Buffalo. You'd have another car that's coming out of Cleveland. You have another car coming out of Columbus. You had a couple of cars coming out of Detroit. You had another car coming out of Chicago. And even if they had coach passenger, if it filled up, they would run that car all the way to Jacksonville and then to Miami. And so what we have is a New York Central in our model that we're running here today. And they had excellent dining car service on this train. And basically they had dining car service all the way from Cincinnati to Jacksonville. And at Jacksonville, the Florida East Coast took this train from the southern and ran it all the way to Miami. And so this train left Detroit and most of all the northern cities at about midnight. Actually, Detroit, it left at 11:30. Buffalo, it was about midnight, and all these trains. And so when you got on your car, you usually would get on your car at about 10:30 or so, and you go to sleep, and the next morning you would be in Cincinnati, ready to have breakfast, heading south. And they went through the what they call the Southern Rat Hole in southern Kentucky, and into Tennessee, East Tennessee, beautiful scenery. And it was during the daylight. Went to Chattanooga, Atlanta, Valdosta, Jacksonville, and then on down to Miami. And the Florida East Coast, what we have here, pulled this train, and this was a real luxurious train. And it once again had a lot of heavy competition. The city of Miami was its biggest competitor. The South Wind, which was the trading partner of the Atlantic Coast, and FEC was the Pennsylvania. And so there were some real heavy hitters in the Midwest market for the Florida market. And this is the train that we have on show and tell this morning. And so we hope you enjoyed watching this. We thank you for watching. And from the beautiful, world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, this is Monday Morning Show and Tell.